Brakefield.
And I'm Jennifer.
We've been doing the Bible recap journey. It's a 365 day of reading and Bible studying the Bible in chronological order. Uh, so we've seen that there's not much of a source of other people doing this and answering the questions, and we're wanting a better understanding. Uh, so we figured we would help other people out where we are kind of struggling.
And we may do other Bible studies later as well. We just wanted, as we're answering these questions in the study guide, we haven't really seen any videos doing that. And I'm new to reading the Bible in any sense, so trying to get a better understanding of it. And I have certain questions, and we want to see if anybody else has similar questions or answers and other insights. So, yeah.
I've never read the Bible completely through. I've read here or there, and this is definitely going to be a first with the journey.
Yeah, I'm excited and nervous to go through it because I guess there's different ways to interpret the Bible, but um, I don't necessarily know if I'm interpreting it wrong or not,
No,
so.
not just one way is right. There's
Right.
always going to be a broader spectrum of understanding, and everybody's going to understand things differently. It's like they say you can read one page one day, read it the next day, and you get a completely different meaning and understanding from it. But
So we're going to just share our testimony and who we are today, and um, before we start getting into the real study of the Word.
yeah, so uh, I'll begin with my testimony. So growing up, my family was in church. We went to church on Sundays, maybe some Wednesdays. Uh, my grandparents grew up in church. My mom and my mom's brothers, they actually were always in church. They participated in Sunday school, being teachers and stuff like that. Uh, my grandpa was not a believer when my grandparents first got together, and he basically dragged them out of church on several occasions, just saying like, you don't need this, you don't, God's not real, stuff like that. But one day he was actually sitting in their parking lot, and he just felt this strong urge that he needed to come inside. Everybody in the family, they told me the story countless times. He doesn't just walk into the building, he's running down the aisle and falls flat on his face at the altar. And since then, he was a completely different man. And I like that testimony. It shows me what kind of man I want to be. Since that day, he was a very godly man. He had his faults like all of us, but he was still a good man. Uh, he was also my best friend growing up. Anytime I wasn't with my mom, I was at their house. I was riding the tractor with them. I was going fishing, going camping, piggyback rides, you name it. We were always doing it. But in 20 or 2005, he actually passed away. And I was only like 8 years old, so it hurt me a little bit. Well, not a little bit, a lot. I was devastated by the loss of my grandpa. It was the first loss that I actually personally experienced. Uh, and it made me kind of just come into myself. I didn't really talk much to people anymore. I wasn't outgoing. I wasn't bubbly. I just, I stayed to myself. Uh,
Withdrew.
yeah, I withdrew.
Yeah.
But yeah. Um, with that too, family cart started to kind of fall apart too. Uh, my mom stopped going to church altogether. Uh, pretty sure she lost faith around that time as well. But you know, she was daddy's little girl. Uh, and we didn't completely stop going, but we definitely didn't go regular. It was inconsistent. I was in and out of church. Like some Sundays we'd go, some Sundays we stay home. We wouldn't do nothing. Do we played outside or something like that. But we did have an uncle that he was heavily involved in church. He actually always had us come stay with him on some weekends. Not every weekend, but a lot of the weekends. We would go to church with him. We would also attend the vacation Bible school with him as well at his church. Um, I could definitely say without my uncle, me and my brothers wouldn't be the kind of men we are today, and kind of have our faith in God the way that we do without him kind of making a foothold for that. Uh, he was always preaching to us. He was just randomly just come up to us and just start talking about different things that he read in the Bible, different understandings that he got from the Bible. One thing that really stuck out to me was his talks about being a godly husband, a godly father. Um, he showed me that when you choose a wife, you become one with her. And that really stuck with me and made me want to be a good, godly husband and a godly man. Um, but there were some things that happened with my family that we stopped seeing my uncle for a long period of time, or not seeing him, but just stopped spending the time with him. We would see him, but not that much. Uh, when I was in high school, I was about ninth grade. Uh, there was one time that I got really close and personal with God, and it kind of it's my first experience with God personally. My little brother, he actually went missing. Uh, I was frantic. I was looking all over the place for him. My mom, my brother, or my other brother, we were looking for him, and he just wasn't anywhere. And we knew he was here, but he just was gone. It was like he just went into thin air. So I started running the streets, all the roads. I was in bare feet, just kind of running everywhere I could. And after like the first two roads, I started frantically crying and just begging God, just bring him home. Like, let him be home when I get there. So sure enough, I got home and police are there trying to search for him, and they take a look through the house and they actually find him inside the house, which we thought we looked really good, but he had hid underneath the bed and like had covers and pillows over him. So you like if you just looked and didn't pull anything out, you wouldn't know he was there. He fell asleep, so we would call for him and he wouldn't answer. But that was a time that God first showed himself to me and was like, I'm listening to you. I just I I listened to it and I heard it, but I didn't really see it. It was like I got what I asked for and I moved on. I went right back to being who I was. Uh, I remember a time that I was maybe in 10th grade or so, maybe still ninth grade, that we went to a Halloween, which is a Christian scare house. They walk you through what could happen if you sin and stay in sin and then pass away and like you go to hell. I saw how powerful, like, what could happen if I let sin be the only thing in my life. But I didn't really take it serious in that way. Uh, they called for everybody to, like, if you wanted to be saved and you have that conviction, to raise your hand, they pray for you. I did it, but it was just more of a hey, everybody's doing it. Let me do it. Let me be one of the cool people that's raising my hand right now. So I didn't take it serious at all. Uh, but later, my mother got pregnant, and we were having my brother John Thomas. She was about 9 months pregnant, and it actually ended up being a stillbirth. He was perfectly healthy, no medical problems. Just he was just dead. He just stillborn. Uh, that really affected me because I had seen how I had done things wrong with my other two brothers, and I saw him as a chance to do something right. I had all these dreams and hopes and kind of visions that I saw for myself with him that I latched onto. I really truly thought this was my chance to be a better brother. Uh, and that actually pushed me away from God instead of what God probably intended for me to be. Uh, I pushed God away. I was mad at everybody. I was mad at the world. I was mad at my family. I was mad at God. Most importantly, like I was mad at Him. Like, how could you do that to me when you knew I made a commitment to be better? And it wasn't until about a year later that we found out that this was a blessing in disguise. Uh, my mother found out that she had an illness that nobody would have known about without what happened with my brother. So it actually healed her, and we could have lost her too. Um, so where really I start having my real complete testimonies around April of 2016. I had just graduated out of high school, and I'm living my life as a freed adult, just doing all the things that an adult would do, living on my own, etc., etc. Uh, I was dating this girl that I thought was the one. She was a very Christian woman. Her family went to church. She actually got me going back to church. But that after about 8 months, it ended very badly. She had been doing some things behind my back, and it broke me. I was completely shattered, and my heart was ripped in two. The night that I found everything out, I hit a wall, and I broke down and said, God, I need you. I'm sorry for the way I've lived. I don't want to be like this anymore. Uh, and then after I said that, I was still crying. I was upset. It felt like I was having a heart attack. Like I couldn't catch my breath. I was hyperventilating, and I need to tell somebody that I just gave my life to God. So I confessed to my uncle. I called him. It was probably around 10 o'clock at night, and me and him talked for a few hours. Just he was asking me questions, just letting me kind of pour out my heart to him and just tell him what I had experienced. And then later on that month, I actually got baptized. I was good and solid in my relationship with God. I kept walking in the faith, but then after a few months, it just started to kind of die down in me. I stopped feeling that conviction, which there is a reason why I stopped feeling conviction that I see now. It's that in my head, I got this idea that Christians are very hypocritical, and I didn't want to be like them. I told myself that all the time. I'm not going to church because I don't need to go to church to worship God. I can just do it by myself, and God knows. Which I see that was Satan trying to get in between me and church, in between me and a support system to get me closer to where I need to be with God. And now I've realized that it's like, wow, church is really where you find that strength with other people that are like minded around, that want to believe in God, want to do what is right for God. Um, and that brings to the next few years, I strayed away. I was completely off from God. I just not completely. I was here and there. I would listen to him, but for the most of it, I didn't care to listen to him. I lived for myself. I lived for sin, basically. Um, that was until around 2019. It's when I first met my then future wife,
Me?
my now wife, which we started things in a very wrong way. It was very immoral. I let lust fill me and did things that no man or woman should do. And I saw that I was wrong. I saw that it was wrong. But looking at it through a different lens, it was kind of exactly how it needed to end up being in God's plan. Uh, Before, I wouldn't have saw it as something super terrible that I did. That I was just doing it for my. It was for a better purpose. It, I guess, broadens more of my testimony. It makes it more impactful. Um, I'm not proud of what I've done in none of my life, but I do know that God has been there every step of it, even when I didn't want to see it, and all the things that I probably still haven't seen to this day. Um, but He was telling me that she was the one. I may have went about it the wrong way, but she was the one that He needed me to be with. Um, so after a about a year's time, we stopped living in that sin, in that lust, and we actually went to being a partnership, and we actually started dating and doing things the right way. Not completely right, but we were trying to do better than what we were. Uh, and that around August of 2020, uh, we were actually in a really bad car accident. We went down an embankment and we flipped and we rolled about 200 feet or so, and we landed smack dab in the middle of a church parking lot. Uh, God had his hand on us that day. He knew that he had greater things for us, and that's around the time that I started really seeing God has his hand in my life. He has something in store for me that I can't yet understand. Even then, I didn't really understand. I just started having this feeling that there was something greater that I couldn't understand at that moment. So with that accident, we didn't get hurt. It certainly looked like we probably should have both died.
Yes.
The car was like a can just ripped apart. It it didn't look pretty, but we honestly we weren't hurt. That's where we know God definitely had his hand in that. It also led to a blessing after that. We actually got engaged in 2020 in December. It opened my eyes to be like, wow, like she is the one. God put her in my life. She's the one that I need to be with. the one I want to be with, the one that I am choosing. So after that, we ended up finding out in like January, February that we were actually pregnant, which I was previously told that I had very, very, very small chances of having a child. Which, now that I look at it, the accident led to me wanting to get married to this woman, to then giving me a child that I would have thought, with all my past relationships, all the lust that I lived in, all of that perversion, that I would have had at least a couple, at least by this time, but I still had zero. God had a plan that this is the woman that I will give you, and she will bear your children. So I'm grateful for that.
I'm grateful for that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had our uh, our son that's now about 3 years old. We had him, and I started thinking more about being a father, and then missing out on my father growing up. He wasn't in my life. I struggle with having a good male role model and not having to rely on just my mother to lead me. And then I thought about what my son would experience and what he would want to know about his grandfather. And I realized I didn't know anything. So I decided to reach out to my dad in 2022, which that was one of the hardest things that I had to do after all that I had been through in my life with him. Um,
But it was a good thing in the end.
it was a very good thing. He ended up actually not pushing me back to God, but leading me by example, which I've never had anybody to lead by example in my life. Not someone that I always wanted them to lead me. So in the next year or so after that, and we started, all of us, going to church, talking about God, talking about what we need to understand from the Bible, just having discussions, bringing us closer to each other and closer to our faith in God. Um, but I was still living apart from God during these times. I would get a little close and I would fall back. It was just a never-ending cycle. Um, but I would still listen to him here and there. I still I still wanted to do what God wanted me to do, but I still wanted to do what the flesh wanted to do. And that really did change in 2022 after months of being with my father. I started working towards my relationship with God, with understanding Him and trying to listen to Him more and not give in to the sinful nature that I had already been giving into. I wanted to be obedient to Him, so I started reading more and more, and I got closer to God. And I'm thankful that He could forgive someone like me that refused Him. I'm thankful for the life that He was able to give me and that I'm able to live. I'm thankful for the path that I didn't see, but God knew I needed. And I'm thankful for the father that I didn't have growing up to guide me back to my Heavenly Father. Without Him leading me back, I would not be able to be a good, godly husband that I always wanted to be. And now I'm able to actually lead my family and be a good husband like the Bible instructs me to be. It also led me to trusting Him more and allowed me to rely on His power and His plan. It also led me to increase my knowledge by enrolling myself into Bible college. And I know one day I'm hoping that I can become either a preacher or missionary or just something that I can lead somebody to God. I'm not sure what He has in store for me and my family, but I do know I am going to listen and follow Him.
All right, so this is my testimony. Like I said earlier, I am relatively new to everything, but I was raised Greek Orthodox, and I was baptized then too, but I guess, they do it as a baby, so apparently that doesn't.
Sprinkle of water.
Yeah, like, well, they might have dunked me in a thing, but my family wasn't really religious. We went to church, but it was on special occasions and holidays. And even then, half the time I didn't understand what was being said because they either spoke in Greek or I guess, couldn't hear the messages that were um, being spoken. I couldn't relate to them. Um, Eventually, when I was a teen, I did go to some teen youth nights with some friends. But again, still wasn't hearing the message yet. Um, when I was 18, right after high school, I ended up getting pregnant. Um, and I felt ashamed and like I had disappointed everybody around me, especially my father. Um, I was married soon to that guy and had another baby. Um, but it was a very hard marriage. It was not something that I think would be godly in any respect. Um, he did not believe in God in any shape or form, wasn't religious. Um, and I hadn't found God yet at this point. It was a 10-year relationship altogether. It was very toxic and abusive. Um, I ended up going through really bad postpartum depression and anxiety uh, with after my second baby, and it was very, very difficult. I ended up losing myself completely, and I was just broken. Um, I guess I was left in a very emotional, like disturbed state, like all the time. And that led me to a lack of judgment, and my morals were just kind of all over the place. Like I knew what was right and wrong, and if I had been in my right state of mind, I wouldn't have done half the things that I did. Um, so I really lost myself. Um, I started to go to counseling, and I gained a lot of clarity, so my counselor would give me some books to read, and that's when I learned that I was in something abusive. It was very hard to kind of cope with. Um, I never thought that I would be in that type of a situation, so that was hard to come to terms with for sure. And that was probably about 2018, and then I started to go down the divorce process, and I found a support group that, oddly enough, was in a church. Um, and they had a kids session too, so I could bring my kids with me, and they would go and they would hear about God's word in their stuff, and I would be able to talk to the divorce support group. And I'm very thankful for that group of people, because it was a very, very difficult time to go through, and having others that I could talk things out with and could share a little bit of, I wouldn't say God's word, but there were some aspects to it, because they did reflect on things in the Bible. And even though divorce is technically wrong in that sense, like, a lot of the people in there were going through abusive relationships. Um, just everything in my life at that time was really shaken up. I was trying to find myself, and I started diving into the spiritual. I got back into reading and listening to music and books, just coloring, everything creative. Things that I hadn't been able to do in years. I really put a focus and effort on my kids. It wasn't until 2019 that, I met this handsome guy over here. And I technically had already met him, like, in 2012. We were neighbors. So, he was the boy next door in that sense. And we didn't engage really until we were older. But he was in a relationship on and off, and I ultimately aided in him cheating on her. And we had a back and forth relationship over the next year as they kind of went on and off. And this is when I first really started talking to God, although I didn't at the time know that that's what I was doing. I would just kind of ask for signs about whether or not I should, close the door on you, or should I be mad at you, and whatever the case was. But every time I was, always told, don't close the door, just wait. When the time is right, it will happen. So God's been there all along for me. I just didn't see it until, I guess, now, and going through this testimony, honestly. Um, then we were officially dating. And the first several months of our relationship, we encountered so much that felt like it was designed to tear us apart. And I was having a rough time with my dad, who happens to be dealing with drug addiction. And cops became involved, and it was such a hard situation to deal with. But you showed up, and you acted so selflessly in those moments, and I can't express the relief that I felt when I got to see you. Like, it was just, yeah, crying. I think I knew then that I definitely wanted to marry you. I knew like a year before that too, but I knew then. But it was just that sheer relief of seeing him. And that was the time I actually started trusting again, because I had lost my way. So we're still within those first few months. We got into a car accident, and we flipped and rolled, and we landed upright in the church parking lot. Yeah. Like, upright, like, not upside down, nothing, just upright. And I have no memory of the accident or that, day. I had a concussion and amnesia. I technically lost like 6 months at the time. So it was like the Vow movie, just or 51st Dates. Like, hey, who are you? No, I knew who you were the whole time. I just didn't know I lived with him or anything like that. Um, so the entire car was smashed. The back end was gone. Um, and it's honestly a miracle that not only did we make it out with the injuries we had, like we just bruised and banged up, maybe a little bit of a concussion. We had matching staples, like scars now. Um, but my kids weren't in the car with us. And I know that God was there that day. It was at that point that I started wanting to know more about God. After our car accident, we got engaged and we became pregnant, like shortly after that. And that was actually another miracle in our lives at that point. Um, God knew the joy that that little boy would bring us both, because
Definitely.
he he's a character. Um, for me though, that solidified that not just me, but we were on the right path, because, you know, you not being able or having those slim chances to not have a kid, and then I got to have your baby. Of all the things in all your story, like I got to be the one, and it just, we were on the right path at that point. Um, and even though I didn't, I hadn't turned my life over to him, he constantly kept showing up. And our wedding was in November of 22, and we had a hurricane. And I know that I researched it, and we hadn't had a hurricane in November in like years. So that was just out of nowhere. But by his grace, we had moments of no rain during our ceremony and the reception. So we actually got to go outside. We got to take all the pictures outside that I wanted, and it was a really beautiful day, even though it was during this like storm. And for me, this was, God showing me that I needed to have faith during those dark moments. Um, so he just, throughout it all, shows up. He's
He
there.
shows up.
He shows up. He's there. We don't know, but he shows. Um, so at this point now, we're in like 2023, and we had been trying different churches out, trying to figure out, which one really spoke to us. I was super eager to learn God's word, but I didn't hear him or feel his presence in some of the places that we had tried. We went to a Pentecostal, and we felt him.
He was moving in that place.
He was moving. It was like an hour away almost, and it was really difficult getting all the kids up and in and out, especially on days you weren't there. But we found one closer now. So, but um, I was searching for him, and I really wanted to start learning more about him. I couldn't find him yet, or a place that I could hear him in. I went to my yearly woman's appointment, and I got checked, and they found two tumors that came back as cervical cancer, but we actually caught it super early, and I was actually able to get both of them removed. And that was an amazing thing, but it was very scary. It was my first ever surgery. Um, I really didn't know how to feel about it all. I tried to pray during that time, but I felt like I didn't know how to pray. Like, I don't really know if there's a right and wrong way to do that, but, like, I couldn't surrender to him fully like I thought that you needed to do. or that you are supposed to do, I guess. So I was scheduled for a full hysterectomy, and God said no. He said he had other plans. 3 weeks before my surgery, I went in. I was having some ovarian cyst pain, and they did an ultrasound, but they didn't see anything there. Nothing looked out of the ordinary. A week later, I actually found out that I was pregnant. It was a super high risk pregnancy because of my surgery like 4 months before that. Um, but there was more of a chance that I may not be able to hold that pregnancy. So we had to do a lot of ultrasounds. We were going like, I was going with all the kids like every other week, getting checked, just making sure that everything was okay with the baby. Um, it was during this time that I saw God wanting me to surrender to Him. Um, and it, it, the doctors wanted me to have a procedure, done in order to like help keep the baby in, and I didn't want it. I was very concerned about it. I did a lot of asking about it. I tried to pray about it and just ask, to be given the answer in that way. And I chose not to go ahead and get it done. And I mean, he saw us through the pregnancy. I mean, we went all the way up until 37 weeks, and then we had to be induced, because I had high blood pressure. But even then, that whole induction process, like we had to go through every technique that they had, but that baby came out so easy. And it was then that, I kind of understood God was telling me, just trust me. Like, it's gonna work out in whatever way. Like, you have to trust me. You got put your faith there and just leave it. Um, my yearning to actually learn God's word and how to have such faith as you have, because you have, even if it's tiny some days, like you have much more and you're just very grounded in it. And I want that. I do. And we've reconnected with family that we had previously outings with, and God could not show me how much change that He could do in a situation if it wasn't for them right there. Like, because before our wedding, we had such a falling out, and today we're besties. Like we're so close. We're not only that, but we're doing a Bible study with the entire family. So we're learning and growing and exploring God's word together and having these discussions, and it's just amazing to be able to do that with everyone. I like the intellectual conversations, so I think these hold a special place in my heart. Um, God really makes a way. He is consistently showing me every day that He's been there every step of the way in every part of my story, whether or not I knew He was there. And everything He does is for a reason. Whether or not I know it, every moment, good or bad, it's in His time. And I should just trust Him. And it's extremely hard to just do that, but I'm working on it. Yeah, yeah, but that's me. So those were our testimonies. That's a little bit about us and where we are in our journey.
Yeah.
We will share those also on Facebook and our Instagram, just in case you wanted to read them. Just have questions on them, you can message us.
We're still learning too. It's
Yeah.
not like we think we know the answer.
Oh yeah, no,
this is what we believe, and I'm more than open to learning from anybody. If you know a little bit more, have a better understanding, message us, email us,
leave comments.
yeah,
Yeah.
say whatever you have to say, and there's no judge here.
Yep.
We're gonna take it and we're gonna learn from each other. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, we're looking for insights, I guess, things that we didn't see, but maybe you did, and we've enjoyed talking together, and we see that we see different things.
It's a lot different on camera though. So
Yeah, it is.
just leave a comment on Facebook, Instagram. We're gonna put our written testimonies on there completely. I know I may have not said everything how it is wrote down. Um, it's just camera shy. I can't help it, but it'll be on there. Both of ours will be, and yeah, this is the journey of us trying to build up our unbreakable faith.
Yep.
We see y'all for the next one. Brakefields out.